everyone, welcome to today's session on mental health. I will be talking about online counseling versus face-to-face therapy and what are the main differences between them. So without further ado, let's begin. And if we haven't been introduced, my name is Megha Mathur and I welcome you to my channel, Let's Talk Mental Health to live your best life. Now, one thing to be absolutely clear about is you are going to feel the loss of confidentiality that your therapist provides in a safe and secure environment in their office. Now, when you are at home, that partial confidentiality is taken away. So you have to make sure that you are safe and secure, that you're feeling safe and secure to talk to your therapist. So here are a few things that I want you to do. Let your family members know that you are going to be in a therapy session with your therapist. Secondly, put a do not disturb sign outside the door of wherever you feel the most secure in your home. And finally, I do suggest having noise cancelling headphones around you so that you can focus on the session with your therapist rather than focusing on maybe what is happening outside of your closed door. So this is how you're going to build that safe and secure environment that you kind of lose out on when you go to a therapist's office. Now, the next thing that I want you all to be mindful of is the regulation of emotional outbursts in sessions. Now, when you are in a face-to-face session with your therapist, it is easier for them to give you immediate coping strategies so that you can implement them together. Now, this can also happen in an online counseling format, but the key is that you do not log yourself out or just end the session abruptly, because what is stopping you from just switching off and saying goodbye? So be mindful is that if you are going through an emotional session, it's becoming a little bit hard for you to deal with, let your therapist know right away instead of just logging off, because that's not going to happen if you were in a face-to-face session with your therapist. You wouldn't just suddenly walk off and leave. You would probably sit through it, discuss it with your therapist, get those coping mechanisms, and then leave the session, correct? So if you are in an online session with your therapist, stick with it. Do not go for that urge to just leave the session because it's easier to press the end button and get it done with, because then you're left with a range of emotions that become very hard to deal with. So let your therapist work through your emotions even when you are on an online counseling format. Now, one other thing that I want you to be mindful about, a lot of body language cues are being used during a therapeutic process to understand how the therapy process is going forward. Now, when you are in an online counseling format, the only thing left for a therapist to gauge upon if everything is fine are your facial expressions. So be open with them. Be open about what it is you're feeling, like you would do in a normal face-to-face session. Send those little cues across. If you're not happy with what he or she said, let them know through your facial expressions, or just openly say it to them. Hey, you know what? This is not what I was going for, but I want you to focus on a couple of other things. Now, I also want to give you some additional tips and strategies that are going to help you have a good online counseling session with your therapist. Tip number 1, keep a box of tissues ready right next to you. Now, this is important because say if you're having an emotional session with your therapist, now, instead of just abruptly running and getting a box of tissues or running through your own household to find that box of tissues, because let's be honest, it's very hard to find something when we actually need it. So get that box of tissues ready next to you so that your therapeutic process is not interrupted. Tip number 2, keep your phone fully charged. Now, in case if your Wi-Fi connection is not stable, or if your laptop suddenly runs out of power, you have a backup ready to continue your sessions with your therapist. Tip number 3, keep a list of questions that you want to ask your therapist ready. or keep a list of things that you want to tell your therapist about what happened during the week and what you worked on, what you need to work on, so that there is a purpose for your session. And finally, give feedback to your therapist. Because remember, your therapists are constantly worrying that maybe the online session didn't go well, or what it is that they could have done better to make it more safer for you. So give them feedback, because remember, as humans, we all rely on positive and negative feedback and are constantly evolving. So let your therapist know that, hey, you know what, this was a good session and I'm really enjoying my online counseling sessions. Now, I do hope that the key takeaways from this video that you got are some of the tips and strategies that I listed to make the online counseling format more beneficial and useful to you. Now, if you were to ask me which one is better, is it the online counseling format versus the in-person counseling format? I will be biased and I will say that I do prefer to have an in-person counseling session with a client, because it gives me more feedback on how the session is going and if the client is getting benefit from it. Now, every therapist is going to be different. This is my opinion. And I hope that you were able to make that decision of which one is going to be better for you in the long run. Are you more comfortable with having your sessions online with your therapist? Or are you more comfortable with having a face-to-face session with your therapist? Now, whichever one you decide, I hope this video helped you with that decision. Now, do subscribe to my channel and hit the notifications button, because in the next video, I will be talking about what a therapeutic process looks like and what does it mean to be in a therapy session with a therapist. Now, I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Till then, live your best life.